Very good evening. I am Shilpa and I welcome you all to the special live phone-in session of NCERT in collaboration with National Institute of Educational Planning and Administration. Today our topic of discussion is observation, feedback and supervision, which we will discuss with Dr. Subitha GV, who is an assistant professor in National Center for School Leadership. We welcome you, ma'am, in our today's program.
Thank you, Shilpa.
So let's proceed to understand this very significant topic. So ma'am, if you could just brief us what exactly we are going to discuss today.
Yes, before that I would like to relate my previous lecture with this. In the last lecture I had mentioned about the role of principals. How as a school head you need to know the school and the purpose of education.
Right.
So I had mentioned that there are 4 purposes of education. Education for empowerment, education to make students responsible citizens of the country, education for critical thinking and education for inquiry.
Right.
So it is very important for a school head to focus on this holistic development of the child and ensure that the purpose of education with respect to all these 4 aspects are being fulfilled in the classroom and in the teaching learning process. So today's discussion is a little step ahead with respect to my previous session, and the main focus of today is on school head as an instructional leader, number 1. And as a school head and as an instructional leader, how do you improve or facilitate the teacher's professional development? Second, and within this area of professional development, how do you ensure that the teachers in your school become teacher leaders? So teacher leadership is one aspect that I would like to touch upon. And the very important aspect, the focus of today's session is observation and feedback and supervision. So as a teacher leader and as a school principal, as an instructional leader, how does a school head ensure that he conducts this practice of observing the teachers and giving them feedback so that there is an improvement of teacher performance, teacher learning, so that they become teacher leaders. So this is the main focus of my topic today. And within this practice of observation and feedback of teachers, I would like to suggest a model which can be used in the classroom to facilitate a good practice of observation and feedback. And further, I would like to focus on how this practice is being perceived in a developing country like India. What are the challenges that school heads face during this process of observation and feedback, and what are the measures that can be used to improve this practice of observation and feedback in the classroom. So this is my focus today.
So ma'am, you said the school principal as instructional leaders. What exactly this dictum means? Yes,
so this is a very important term, this concept of instructional leaders, and I think I had mentioned in the previous lecture that most of the time the school heads are into this managerial and administrative tasks, and they have very less scope for instructional or academic tasks in the school. So this perspective, I am repeating once again, this has to change, and school heads needs to have more time on academic aspects of the classroom. So in this perspective, I want to say that as an instructional leader, the main focus for you should be on student learning. So the kind of questions that you need to ask in this aspect as an instructional leader is, are my students learning in my school? If they are not learning, then what are the collaborative, supportive structures I need to bring into the school, into the system, so as to facilitate student learning? So this focus always has to be in the school head's mind as an instructional leader. And actually there is research which says that teacher learning has a very strong impact on student learning. So that is why this concept of teacher professional development is very important. And many a times the teachers come to the principals and say that I did my best, I taught my students very well, but they are not learning. So that kind of premise doesn't hold in such a perspective of focusing on student learning, because the onus is on the teacher. Come what may, he or she has to develop those strategies, those capacities to improve the learning of the child, right? So, as an instructional leader, what are those collaborative systems you bring into the school so that the instructional goals of the teachers, or the instructional goals basically for learning, are clear to the teacher, to the school head, and to the entire school, so that the focus is remaining on the learning of the students. So certain key aspects needs to be thought about by the school principal. One is, as I said, focus of learning as an instructional leader. Second, as I said, the collaborative structures that needs to be brought into the classroom. So when I say collaborative structures, I'd like to mention one or two things here. How in our country or in many other countries worldwide, what we notice is that teaching is a very personal activity. So the teaching is, it's like I do my job and I finish my subject, I finish my syllabus, and then I get along with it. But I think this perspective has to change, and teaching needs to be considered as a more social enterprise, where there is a group of teachers helping each other mutually to improve themselves. You know what we mean by a professional learning community. So such kind of community needs to be established in the school, and as an instructional leader, as a principal, you need to be part of this learning community, where you personally help your co-teachers learn through collaboration, through cooperation, through mutual trust, and there are other teachers helping the other teachers learn. So teachers observing teachers, teachers supporting teachers, collaboratively work out a lesson plan, go and teach it in the classroom, you know, these kind of things. So collaboration is a very important aspect.
Right.
And then support from the school principal is also very important. And here I would like to mention one important area for an instructional leader to keep in mind is having a very effective database, right? So when I say database, a school principal as an instructional leader should have a database of the students in his school, of the teacher, the background of the teacher, the qualification of the teacher, what is the teacher's vision for growth, what does he want to grow, where does he want to reach, what are the areas of his strength, what are his weaknesses, and all this data helps him to helps the principal to plan out a learning chart for the teacher. So data recording is very important. And as I said, supportive environment. And finally, as an instruction leader, there has to be a kind of alignment between instruction, curriculum, teaching, and assessment. So in the previous session, I had mentioned that how to inculcate higher order thinking among the children. So when you are your teachers should ensure that the higher order thinking is there in their minds when they teach. So what are the strategies they should use to create this higher level thinking among students in the classroom, and what are the kind of assessment you would use in the classroom to ensure that they have attained these higher level thinking skills like critical thinking and creative thinking, etc. So as an instructional leader, these are the areas on a very broad perspective that he or she has to remember, to keep in mind when he's focusing on student learning.
Right. So ma'am, I'll just come to the teacher professional growth.
Yes.
When it comes to this particular point, then what kind of role or support instructional leader that we are calling principal, what they can do?
So as a instructional leader, how he or she can help in professional development, to just make your question more clear. So basically, when I define this term professional development, it basically means what are the learning opportunities you provide to a teacher so as to engage with the reflective and creative aspects of the teacher to which impacts the teaching practice of the teacher. So basically this term professional development is related to lifelong learning, right? So when I say lifelong learning, it means that you just finish your BA degree or a post-graduation degree, and then you see the textbook and then you teach what is there in the textbook and you finish your teaching. That is not what it is. But instead, as a teacher, you need to be aware of the whole kind of knowledge and the whole kind of new innovations and new ideas and new narratives or discourses that is happening globally, and you need to bring all of these into the classroom.
Okay.
So when I say as a learning organization, as you need to be that vibrant individual who is constantly learning. For example, if you've noticed ICT, use of technology in classroom, you need, as a teacher, you need to reflect on how I will use ICT in the classroom, and as an instructional leader, as a principal, you need to support the teacher. You need to ensure that he is aware of these kind of discourses that he has to develop within himself, and how he or she will use ICT in the classroom.
Right.
And secondly, another example I would take is like if you think about a learner in the 21st century, the kind of skills is a social skills that is in vogue these days, and given a lot of importance. So networking skills, advocacy, and sitting in a group and taking leadership and trying to articulate things and trying to debate on something, you know, all these skills are the current trend that is needed for a child when he, after 12th, when he goes out into the competitive world. So when I say continuous learning, so as an instructional leader and as a teacher, how are you keeping abreast of these kind of knowledges, and how are you strategizing them and using them in the school within your teaching learning process, so that it impacts your students' learning outcome. So this is very important. And to the question like how as an instructional leader you improve the teacher's professional development, there are a number of points I would like to mention. Basically, have a shared vision with your teachers, with your stakeholders, the parents, community, so that everyone is on the same page. So when I said the focus on student learning, you you give major priority to learning rather than the administrator, like the pipes are leaking or there's no compound wall, and you go, I mean, these kind of things that which takes up most of your time, but it doesn't give you the required outcome with respect to student learning. Keep them aside and ensure that the same vision is percolating within your school among the parents, teachers, very important teachers, and among the other stakeholders. That is one. Have shared beliefs and values, what is important for a child, and be open to experimentations. Very important, because there are a whole lot of, the number of, like when you look at various states, like Tamil Nadu is doing activity based learning, which is called ABL. Karnataka is doing Nalikali, but that is at a state level, policy level. But within the school also, if you look at various schools and case studies, you will see that there are these small innovations that are being done, like somebody might do a role play, or somebody might do a peer learning within the class, or somebody may do a drama, and these kind of experimentations with pedagogy. As a school head, you need to allow these things to happen, because what I've heard is they say that ma'am, when the district administrators come on their rounds and they see that the syllabus is not completed, the textbook is I mean, there's a lot of noise in the classroom, they ask, what are you doing? So there's no scope for experimentation. So there is no support from the system level administrators. This is what some of them principals say. So this has to change, and be open to experimentation and change, and open to collaboration, and creating a cooperative and healthy competitive atmosphere in the classroom. And here one important teacher professional development, when it is done by instructional leader, it is on a one-on-one basis. So if you look at the nature of professional development that is currently happening in the country, it is mainly through in-service teacher training, which is on a very broad aspect. It is not on a one-on-one basis, a one-size-fits-all kind of a thing, and through cascade mode. So the specific issues and challenges that a teacher is facing in the classroom is not taken care of. So as an instructional leader, you are the right person to take care of these issues, the specific issues. So on a one-on-one basis, you support your teacher and ensure that the teachers go through a process of lifelong learning. So when you do this teacher professional development, it improves, as a school head, it improves the adequacy of the teacher, like confidence, and the teacher tries to put in his or her best to the school, because he knows that there is this school head who is taking care and taking responsibility for his larger development. So instructional leadership and as a role to play in teacher professional development is a very important area that needs to be taken into consideration.
Coming to the topic, the basic question is how observation and feedback can help in teacher effectiveness?
Yes, so Shilpa, this is the main area of focus that we are doing today, and observation and feedback, like if you, when I ask, like during our training programs, when I ask my school heads, how do you do this practice? So they have a lot of stories to say. Some of them say that, ma'am, we don't get time to do this practice at all, because as I said, there are a lot of other administrative aspects which needs to be taken care of, and I have no time. The others may say that I do this observing in the classroom, but I do it from outside. I stand in the veranda and ma'am, this much is enough for me. I just stand for 2 or 3 minutes. I look at what the teacher is doing, and then I get a fairly good idea what she is doing or he is doing. And that is my way of observation feedback, because I don't want to disturb the teacher when he or she is teaching, because they feel self-conscious, and it disrupts the teaching learning, which I don't want to be a part of. So that is one thing. And thirdly, some people do this observation and feedback practice, maybe 2 classes in a day, or they have their own schedules. It does happen. But the process of doing this is what needs to be taken into consideration. How do you observe and give feedback to a teacher in the classroom? Are you taking care of the teacher's voice, the teacher's concerns? Are you being specific to his or her needs? Are you challenging him? You know, these kind of things needs to be taken into consideration. So observation and feedback as a tool, this is the main broader perspective with which this is happening in our country.
But ma'am, how observation and feedback mechanism can be used as an effective lever for change? Yes,
it can be used as an effective lever for change, because as an instructional leader, as a site leader, I would say he or she is the significant person who can do this practice well. Why I am saying this is, he is aware of the context of the school, the kind of children who are studying there, and he is aware of the teacher who is teaching the classroom, and he is aware of the strengths and weaknesses of the teacher. So when it comes to a mutual relationship between the teacher and the school principal, I as a teacher, I know that here is a person who's taking responsibility for my growth and for my development. So I trust him to ensure that I'm growing as an individual. That is my perspective as a teacher. and since he's taking responsibility, I do my job well. I take more and more responsibility in the school, and I do my best. You know, that is the kind of cycle that it comes to. And for a school principal, as an instructional leader, he or she has this perspective that this is a teacher who needs to be supported during his learning or his or her learning stages, and I will ensure that his learning is continuous and constant, and there is a trajectory with respect to his learning. It is not a constant, it's not a stagnant learning. So relationship is very important in this observation and feedback. And secondly, shared vision, as I already said. So I know what I'm doing, and my teacher also knows what I'm doing as an instructional leader, and I communicate my vision with the teacher, and teacher as an example, and with many others. And here data, again I want to talk about this data management. So this process of observation and feedback, when I do as an instructional leader, when I observe a teacher in the classroom, I take down, like when I realize that there are some things that the teacher is lacking. For example, the skill of questioning by the teacher is something he needs to improve upon. So I immediately note it down, right? So that is my data. And it is evidence-based data. I'm seeing him, and if the teacher is okay or comfortable, I can even have a videotape of the teacher teaching, so that he is also convinced about his strengths and his weaknesses. So these things act as a data for me to track or to follow up on the teacher's development. So data is very important, and also my data on the teacher and my data on the student. To what extent is the student's learning improving with respect to this teacher, and what are the new with respect to the teacher, has he been to any professional development programs of late? Has he been to a seminar? Has he been to a workshop? So all these data the school principals need to have, so that he can facilitate the professional development of the teacher, and not just in the classroom, but also as a follow-up strategy he needs to be aware of. So maintenance of data is very important for this observation and feedback. So when you ask as a change, as a lever for change, basically it is building on relationships, having a shared vision, and managing data by the school principals with respect to the teacher development and with respect to the student development. So this is how this practice of observation and feedback can bring about a change in the classroom.
So ma'am, you just made us understand about the observation and feedback mechanism. Though it's a mechanism, so are there any models which a principal as an instructional leader can use?
Definitely. Actually, the traditional way of doing this observation and feedback practice is through I mean, I wouldn't call a model, it's called the praise, criticism, praise, right? So when I say praise, criticism, praise, many a times what we note is that the school principal, he observes the class, he says, I liked the way you taught in the classroom, and it went on well. I think the students have learned, but you did not ask questions in the classroom, or you did not give homework in the classroom, and you ignored one child in the classroom, but overall it was good. You know, that praise, criticism, praise kind of a thing. So this is how it usually traditionally goes. But on the other hand, there is a more better model of doing this observation and feedback, which is ask, describe, ask model. So I would like you to see the PowerPoint presentation. So this ask, describe, ask model is before you come to the classroom for teaching. So as the teacher is teaching, and as a instructional leader, when you are observing the classroom, and once the teacher is finished, we always ensure that the discussion that comes after the teaching is on a more collaborative and a mutually understanding and mutually trust kind of an environment where you don't feel you are diffident and I don't feel diffident about saying what I have in my mind. So when I say this word ask, this model of ask, describe, ask model, rather than going by this praise, criticism, praise, what we would suggest is you first ask the colleague to assess his or her own teaching. So you ask this question, okay, now that you have finished the teaching, how did it go on, right? How did you attain? What did you have in mind, and did you attain what you had in your mind? And do you think there are areas that you need to improve? So when you do this, you are investing in the teacher's ability to reflect, in the teacher's ability to create a chart for his or her own professional development, and also to hear the teacher's voice. Right, so there is no hierarchy in this kind of a relationship. You're willing to establish a dialogue with the teacher rather than this one-sided way of you didn't do this. So the next time you have to improve this. So this is not happening here. So the first ask is you ask the teacher to assess his or her own performance, right? The other, the next one comes the describe. So describe what you observed. So as an instructional leader, I give a very descriptive and a non-judgmental description about what I observed in the teacher's teaching. And I enter into a learning conversation with the teacher, and I ask him or her what are the areas you think you need improvement. For example, could you have used ICT? Could you have shown some videos, or could you have shown some pictures in this kind of a subject? Or I noticed that there was a big gap between certain set of students and another set of students. Why did you create that gap? So why I'm saying this is, sometimes it so happens that teachers have their own beliefs and their own prejudices that certain community should not sit together and they need to be segregated, or boys and girls need to be segregated. So during this observation, you see that all these beliefs and value systems are they are observed by the instructional leader, and these are changed, and so that there is a learning happening through a mutually benefiting kind of an environment. So this is about describe. And the third ask is, after the end of this learning conversation, you ask, now tell me what are your areas of improvement, what do you want to do next. So he or she, the teacher, might say that I think I need to develop my ICT skill. I mean, I'm just giving an example. So as an instruction leader, you jot it down because that is your data, and also you create that support mechanism. Either I send him, keep it mentally noted down and send him for a workshop or for a seminar, or I get a ICT teacher in the school or in the community to come and help this particular teacher. So why I'm saying this is, it is, as I said, a very personalized way of going about with respect to teacher professional development in this practice of observation and feedback. So ask, describe, ask model is something that can be followed in the classrooms rather than the praise, criticism, praise.
So ma'am, in the area of observation and the feedback, particularly in India, what kind of challenges we normally face?
So as I already mentioned, in our country there is this top-down bureaucracy that works, and also principals lack autonomy with respect to taking decisions, etc. So they will do, many a times they do what they are asked to do. So most of the time they don't have time, and secondly, if they have time, they just go through this this observation process as a chore that needs to be completed and submitted to the higher authorities, the data. So this is something that needs to change, and I think as the country and as the states can also go through various kind of modifications in this process. Maybe you can keep aside the appraisal tool which is lengthy and which is not precise, that is currently being used in the system, can keep aside and go for their own methods of teacher appraisal and feedback, observation and feedback, which lists, which discusses only one aspect, like one area, which is maybe a skill of communication or skill of reflection or skill of asking questions, etc. Maybe that is one. And the instructional leaders basically need to be oriented or empowered to go through this process of observation and feedback in a more broader aspect.
Right.
Maybe such models might help in the Indian situation.
Right. So today we very well understood how school principal can become a successful instructional leader. Thank you so much for guiding us, ma'am.
Thank you, Shilpa.
On 27, that means on Monday, we will talk on sustainable development. So if you'll have any query, any question, then you can dial into our toll-free number or can drop an email to us. Till then, take care and keep watching Kishore Manch.